The views of the host do not necessarily equate the views of the guests, or vice versa. This podcast is not intended to act as a clinical diagnosis or an authoritative halachic source. Any questions regarding treatment should be directed to your clinician, and any halachic questions should be addressed to your local Orthodox rabbi. We also encourage you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and rate our podcast on iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube. Your support helps increase visibility and allows us to reach more listeners who can benefit from our wonderful guest speakers.
This is Rabbi Ben-Tzion Shafier of the Shmooze.com. Jewish adulting is about shining a light on parts of ourselves in order to do Avodas Hashem with all the tools and resources at our disposal. It is an honor and a privilege to have every day to further refine our character and grow closer to Hashem. Take advantage of these opportunities.
Hello, everybody. This is Chedva Rose, your host for the Jewish Adulting Podcast. I have with me tonight Rabbi Ben-Tzion Shafier, who is a director of the popular website, theshmooze.com. He is a happily married father of 6 children, grandfather to 4, and lives in Monsey, New York. I heard a rumor that I may or may not be the originator of, that Rabbi Shafier is a world-class pickleball player. He can be contacted through his social media pages and would love to hear from him. Now, it's almost an obvious why I invited Rabbi Shafier here, but thank you so much for being here with us.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Can I interrupt for just a moment?
Yes, please.
Pickleball, I don't play, and I thank God I have 9 grandkids. But okay.
So,
other than that, I agree with everything so far.
Okay, so this bio must be a little outdated. So whoever runs your website should definitely get on that. Okay. And I asked you if you want to say you like pickleball, and you're like, yeah, sure. So I decided to create a rumor. So obviously, I don't know who. If you're unfamiliar with Rabbi Shafier, I don't know what rock you have been living under, but he has authored many books, including 10 mistakes. That's 10 dumb mistakes that smart couples make, as well as the Shmooze Parsha books and probably others that I don't even know about, that really focus on the Mussar movement. And the Mussar movement is something that was started in the 19th century. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter started it under his influence. There was, an increased emphasis put on studying and internalizing Mussar Svarim and this sort of idea of, self-refinement. So what I wanted Rabbi Shafier to talk to us today about was, I noticed that I just don't hear a lot about Mussar other than Rabbi Shafier is very active social media and knowing his stuff. And then, every once in a while, there'll be, let's just say I'm not everywhere. So I don't know all the things. There's a lot, Baruch Hashem, there's a lot of Torah out there. There's a lot of, I'm sure they have Mussar Shmooze and yeshivas, but the emphasis that's put on Tanakh and Daf Yomi and Talmud and Mishnah and Halacha, I asked Rabbi Shafier, do you think that an emphasis is put on Mussar the way that the emphasis should? And Rabbi Shafier's answer was?
Unfortunately, no. But really, let's back up for a minute. I'll explain to you some of the why behind. So what Rabbi Yisrael Salanter introduced was the concept that he came to recognize that so much of our Avodas Hashem is self-perfection. The Torah is the guidebook for spiritual self-perfection. All the mitzvahs are there as ways to perfect ourselves, to improve our midos, and to improve our relationship with others, with Hashem, davening, emunah. All of these things are central, integral to being from Jew. And what he found was that in his day, it no longer had the emphasis that it had originally, and therefore he introduced the concept of the Mussar movement. Now, the reason why he introduced it again was because for centuries, really for millennium, the central core of our Avodas Hashem is self-perfection. That's why we were created, that's what we're here for, and that's what all the Torah focuses on. So it was part and parcel of any, certainly any yeshiva education, part and parcel of any person who considered him a from person to be involved in this area, whether it's called Mussar learning or just in general using the mitzvahs as tools for perfection. What Rav Salanta discovered was in his day, it no longer had the emphasis it had, and therefore he introduced this concept of the Mussar movement. Unfortunately, today, I think we're back where Rav Salanta started, because for many generations, the Mussar movement was a very powerful force. The problem is that applying it in our day and age seems to be very difficult. In other words, because unfortunately, most people don't know how to learn a Mussar Sefer, and they don't really appreciate what it's about. And the net result is that even many fine yeshiva guys who have good education and can really learn well just don't know how to open a Mussar Sefer. So I think we're a little bit back where he started, where we find ourselves without some of the anchors, without some of the basic tools that are, again, vital, central to our religion.
Okay, so let's talk about that vital central part. When I try to use my computer-like memory of what I learned when I was in, high school or elementary school, I'm trying to remember where Mussar became important, because you said we're here for growth. We're here to perfect. So is that something that we learned during the Chait? Is that something that we learned later on? Where do we see this need for self-perfection? Where does that come
Okay, so let's begin a little bit more central to that. Mesil Sharm begins with the following observation. He says, the reason that Hashem created us is for one purpose, for us to grow, for us to accomplish, to perfect ourselves in this world, so that for eternity we'll get to enjoy that which Hashem wants, which is us being close to Hashem and enjoying the ultimate benefit, the ultimate pleasure, ultimate joy, being close to Hashem. But the purpose of this world, the reason we're here, the reason Hashem put us here, is strictly for self-perfection. So if you ask where does this fit into the Torah rubric, it is the essence, it's the definition. If you want to know what an Eved Hashem is, an Eved Hashem is one who is on the journey of self-perfection. It's the purpose of life, and it's the reason we're here. All the mitzvahs focus on it, Limud Torah learning focuses on it, certainly davening and all the things we do focus on it. But again, if you're not really clued into the essence of what we're doing, it's going to seem like, oh, gee golly, where did the Muslim movement start? Who invented this idea? So this idea was invented with Bereshis Bar Lakim as a Shemayim V'Za'aretz. The reason why Hashem made us, and the reason why Hashem put us in this world, is strictly to be challenged, to grow, to change the essence of ourselves, so that for eternity we could enjoy that which we accomplished. But this is what you'd call sine qua non. This is about as central to our religion as anything that you could ever use as a definition.
Okay, so it seems to me that there are some other concepts in Judaism that are pretty central. There's a lot, right? But it seems to me that if it's so central to the religion, it should be somewhat intuitive. There should be some sort of obvious solution or some sort of obvious path that is prescribed by the Chachamim or by the Nevi'im, labeling how this process of self improvement and self growth and self actualization should go. Why is it so? Why is it so intangible? Why is it so hard to get to some sort of obvious? Besides for study a Mussar Sefer, why is the solution so cloudy?
Oh boy, you're asking the $1 million question. But let's ask it more basic. Why is it that even if you study the Mussar Sefer, even if you spend your life doing it, why is it so difficult to grow? Why is it so difficult to change? Why, in fact, Hashem created us for that one purpose, to change the essence of me. Why is change so difficult? And the answer to that is something, again, that Mesil Sharm explains to us, really all the Mussar Sharm focus on, and that is the growth of the human comes through being challenged. It is just as easy to fall asleep at the switch as it is to wake up. In fact, it's easier. A person can go through his entire life and never ask the most basic fundamental questions. I've had this on a regular basis. I speak about this a lot. Why Hashem created us, what we're living for, what life's about. And I remember very vividly, at one such lecture, so to speak. I was in an out-of-town community, and an 80-year-old man said to me, he said, Rabbi, according to what you've just said, I've wasted my entire life. And I asked him what he meant, and he explained to me. And now I want you to understand, when you're on one side of the lectern, an 80-year-old man is saying on the other side that he wasted his entire life, and you realize he might be correct, it's a very uncomfortable place to be with. But I want to explain to you what he said so you understand where I'm coming from. He said to me, Rabbi, you talk about the fact that we're created to grow, to change. Every conversation with another human being shapes me. Every mitzvah makes me who I am for eternity is based on what, these are wonderful concepts, but I've never thought about this. Since the time I'm a little kid, I've been focused on making money. Thank God I've done very well. But these ideas I've never focused on. And according to what you're saying, I wasted my entire life. Now, that's a very sad statement for an Orthodox Jew to make in a frum shul when he wears tefillin 6 days a week, keeps kosher, keeps Shabbos, and not recognizing the central core essence, the reason behind it all. Now, what am I going to tell you? You know, education is a commodity. You know, I was a high school Rabbi for many years, and I used to say, ignorance is a curable disease. In other words, you have to open your eyes, you have to read, you have to learn, you have to understand. Meaning, when you realize it, you realize all of the mitzvahs focus on this. Limud Torah is this, Amun is this, Daven. It's all the, more than anything, you have to ask yourself the key core question. Why does Hashem create us? Why does Hashem want us to be here? What is life about? And that question is as fundamental as you're going to get. Why does Hashem create me? What am I doing here? What is the purpose of life? Now, that question, astonishingly, is the kind of question which, while it's so demanding that you answer, how can a thinking person not deal with it? The simple reality is we don't deal with it. And the Chavetz Chaim explains why. Hashem put blinders in our eyes to allow for free will. You see, let's say I knew with absolute clarity that I'm going to die. Let's say I saw with absolute clarity that my end is going to come, and I'm going to stand in front of the Beis Din Shemala, and they're going to ask me, how much of me did I become? How much did I accomplish? They're going to hold up a picture of this great person, and going to say to me, why don't you become that? Me, little me? Yeah, that's what you could have been had you actualized yourself. That's what you could have been had you realized your potential. But you see, if I ever could see that with absolute clarity, I would lose free will. Why? And because I don't do things that are self-inflicting damage. Meaning to say, I don't drink bleach. I don't swallow laundry pods. Something that's clearly damaging to me, I'm not going to do. No matter how much you tempt me, no matter what you offer me, I'm not going to do it. So how do you take a human being, brilliant, understanding, insightful, and give him the opportunity to either grow and become great or just lay in the mud? How do you give him free will? And that great challenge Hashem gave us by putting us into this body that's very corporeal, very heavy, very thick. And in this thing we call life, it is just as easy to fall asleep at the switch as it is to wake up. It's just as easy to live a purposeless, going through the motions life as it is to live a life with purpose, with meaning. Now, one is very enjoyable, one is very beneficial, one is beautiful, the other isn't. But the simple reality is we have that choice, and it has to be an even playing field. Because if it's not an even playing field, there's no free will, no challenge, no reason to grow. So that reality is just part of life. It's just, how can I tell you? It's unfortunate that in yeshivas we don't spend enough time focused on this, especially in elementary school, especially in high school. You know, I spoke a number of years ago at the Gouda convention, and I made a very powerful point, and that is, we're teaching Tosas. Ask the average 16, 17-year-old boy if he could read a Tosas, he can make a laning on Tosas. Many can learn a Ksos, a Marsha. They're very, very fluid. They're very, very wonderfully educated. But we're not teaching you Shemayim. Just if you want to, as an exercise, and I do this regularly, go to any yeshiva high school. I speak very regularly. I was a high school Rabbi for 16 years, and I still visit the high schools. Once a year, I go to different places. So I get a chance to be in the high schools, and I watch the way they daven. And I have to be honest with you, it's sad. Now, there's some fellows who daven beautifully, some daven okay, but the vast majority are just mouthing the words. I don't even know if they're mouthing the words. Just going through the motion, just robotic, just on autopilot, without even paying attention at all. What can I tell you? That's a sad reality. It is a very, very shallow generation we live in. I hate to be critical. You know, it's not my point to be critical here, but it is a very, very, you know, we're very flighty. We're very, you know, there's so much social media, so much going on. It's so easy to get lost in the moment that actually living a life with purpose and meaning, focusing on why I'm here, why does Hashem create me, seems to be something that's almost foreign to our nature. So it's a real issue. Don't get me wrong. It's real, but it's unfortunate, something that isn't stressed anywhere near enough.
Right. Well, I couldn't help but think while I was listening to you that it is unusual to hear someone say in the Frum community after 80 years old, living, as a Torah Jew, I never thought about it. But what I also recognize, and I don't agree or disagree with me, but I noticed that in this current climate that we live in this generation, in the generation of the current media and the current matzav with the Jews in the world and everything that's going on and the politics involved, that people have to do some real mental gymnastics and twist themselves into all sorts of pretzels to believe something that makes no sense. The amount of um, blinders that are put on, they don't even seem real. It's like if you could just look at the person and say, like, do you even have a single fact in to back up anything that you're believing?
Right.
I'm not gonna go into which politics obviously part of it is
I think
the
we all know.
no, it's part of it is the Palestinian conflict, right?
Okay.
It's that is literally, you have to, it's such a pretzel that you have to twist yourself in to believe it. So that does sort of illustrate man's capacity to put these blinders on and say, this is uncomfortable for me, either as a coping mechanism because I don't want my belief system to be swayed or changed. I'm comfortable with the life that I live. I don't want to have to question or be unhappy. And let's be honest, seeking self-improvement, it's not really comfortable. It takes a lot of cheshbon hanefesh. It takes looking at oneself very honestly. It takes acknowledging things that might not be comfortable, accepting responsibility. It's something that I could see as being, and even now generationally, in a very, what do they call it, like a microwave generation, like you just, everything's instantaneous, this process of self-improvement, and it doesn't happen fast enough. And
it's so interesting you say that, because I never, those terms that you use to describe growth, I never thought ever in those terms. In other words, when I learn a Mussar Sefer, when I work on it's let's go. Come on, this is amazing. You change, you grow, you understand. You're living a life of purpose and meaning. It's. I wake up in the morning with let's go. 24 hours to change myself, change people. I can't even now. I recognize that maybe I don't know who's listening to the podcast, but I don't want to date myself. But it could be I come from a different generation. But what can I tell you? I just envision, to me, the most depressing thought in imagination is the thought that life has no purpose, life has no meaning. Imagine the following. I've often said this. Imagine that you don't believe in a world to come. So imagine, here's what happens. When I hit the grave, when my body's put in the grave, it's black, it's over. So I have a very, very important question to ask. Why go through it? Why live through the pain, the torture? Okay, listen, life has its moments, but come on, at the end of the day, I get sick, I have headaches, I have trouble, I have problems, I have issues. Okay, there are good moments also, but what is the purpose of it all? And the pain, the suffering, the sorrow, who needs it? Why go through it? As a matter of fact, at the risk of sounding facetious, I've often said it. If you do not believe in the world to come, then I have a simple suggestion. Find a roof and jump off it. Because there's no purpose to live. Why go through this? Why are you alive? Well, I'm living for the next generation. Well, why should they live? Well, I'm living for my kids. Well, why do you want them to live? There's no purpose. By the way, as an aside, and I don't mean as an aside, I once had, we were, Or Sameach in Monsey used to be a very vibrant yeshiva. And we live a 12-minute walk from Or Sameach. And on a regular basis, we had the guys over. Oftentimes they became B'nai Bias. We had many, many interactions. And on a regular basis, we'd have people over Friday night meals. One Friday night, we had a fellow who was on his way to being from, he wasn't from yet. And he said to me, Rabbi, I have a question to ask you. I said, go ahead. He said, I've asked everyone I know, my professors on college campus, my elders, anyone I can find with wisdom, I asked them this question, and no one can answer. Rabbi, maybe you can answer. I said, I'm not sure. I'll give it a try. He said, here's my question. why have children? But I don't mean why have kids because they're expensive and no. Why do that to a child? Why bring a child into an ugly world? Because you want to have kids? There's so much pain, so much suffering. Why do that to an innocent child? Why should you have kids? So I said to this young man, I said, there are two answers to this question. Which would you like to hear? There's a right answer and a wrong answer. You tell me which one you want. Now he was Jewish, so he said, I'll take both. Okay. He realized they're free. Fine. I said, I'll give you both. Let me tell you the wrong answer first. The wrong answer is you're right. Life is ugly and dark and dreary and difficult, but the world to come is so glorious and so unimaginable that it's worth all the pain and suffering you go through for the world to come. Now I said to him, that's 100% true, but it's the wrong answer to the question. The right answer to the question is, if you understand life, life is beautiful. Life is magnificent. I can grow. I can change. Every minute of life is another opportunity to change the essence of me. Now, that doesn't mean every minute of life is going to be pleasure. I still have headaches and troubles and worries, but life itself is beautiful. Life has a purpose. Life has meaning. Life is very, very significant. I wake up every morning with let's go. I get to grow. I get to learn. I get to change. That's what makes life beautiful. It's what makes life exciting. It's what makes life wonderful. Without that, you're living a vacuous existence, living to make money, living for reputation, living for what? What purpose? What's the meaning? And the proof in the pudding is, I believe that so many people are running away from this single core issue. Why am I here? What's life about? Meaning it's very, very easy in our day to get distracted. Steve Jobs did a very fine job. You know, on the back of that phone, he put the icon. The icon is the apple with the bite out of it. Machnish Kantayis. He knew, I don't know if he knew what he was doing, but it was almost Nevuah, because the iPhone is the most distracting, most engrossing, most engulfing. It sucks you in and absorbs your essence. I see people who are literally married to the palm of their hand. They can't put it down. And the ability to just distract yourself 24/7, in a sense, is a bracha. Why? Because when you're distracted, you don't realize how empty your life is. But every once in a while, you shut off the phone and you say to yourself, what am I living for? What's life about? I have kids, so what? Well, they'll have kids, so what? Well, I have more kids, so therefore what? What are you living for? What's the purpose? Why does Hashem create you? What are you doing here? When you get up in the morning, what do you get up for? To make money? To do what? To change what? I can't describe how life to me is so, again, that word vacuous, empty, meaningless. There's no purpose. And the opposite, once you understand why you're living, life is beautiful, life is magnificent. Again, there's still headaches and troubles and issues, but I understand fundamentally why I'm here. And I value every moment because it's an opportunity to grow, to change. And that is the most beautiful concept because, and by the way, I'll share one more thought with you. Would you like to know the single most enjoyable thing a human being will ever do? The single most enjoyable thing a human being will ever do is when you set a goal, a real life goal, and meet it. Maybe 80%, 60% of it, there's a tremendous joy in your heart. There's wind in your sails, and you say, let's go, I could change, I could grow. But you know why that's the single most enjoyable thing you'll ever do in your life? Because that's what Hashem created you for. Hashem created you to grow, to change the essence of you, to set goals and reach them. And that's why Hashem made you. When you use this tool called the human being for a purpose other than which it's created for, it does a terrible job. It's kind of like using a surgical knife to pry open a window. It does a lousy job and it dulls a knife. When you use a human being who was created to grow, to change, to become great, and you use that thing called life for any purpose other than that, there's an emptiness inside. There's a vacuous sense. It's just, why am I living? And the distracting features in our world today make it easier than ever to live in that constant slumber, but eventually wake up and eventually realize how empty life is. And I don't know what to say. This is, you're right, this unfortunately isn't spoken enough about, and it needs to be again and again spoken. As a high school Rebbe, I would spend 45 minutes every day talking to the guys. The Rabbi would send their guys into my shir, and I would hack them all at a regular davening and amuna and growing and it's a core part of our educational system. It needs to be there. Unfortunately, it isn't. Unfortunately, not focused on. And unfortunately, many people live a life without realizing it. You may be right that 80-year-old's a little unusual in the sense that but most, I'd be surprised. It wouldn't shock me if many people don't have a similar sort of sense of whatever, I learned the Daf Yomi, I give tzedakah, why, whatever. I guess it's what Hashem wants. I don't know, whatever, don't bother me. I'm very busy. Leave me alone.
Well, I I just had this sense when you were answering just now a few things. One was that you should be our spokesperson because I don't know, have you heard the term adulting before?
No.
Okay, so I wanted I'm going to give my nutshell of a speech why I called this podcast Jewish Adulting. Adulting is something as of I have to pay my bills, I have to do carpool, I have to go to work. It's onerous, it's meaningless, it's just rote, it's just things that you have to do, and it's annoying and it's not fun, and it's adulting and you just got to do it. And but Jewish adulting is completely different because from the perspective of Judaism, being an adult is an honor and a privilege and an opportunity for growth and change. And we're just always striving to be better and find meaning and find purpose. And sometimes we just need a little help, use getting wonderful speakers or listening to about resources or whatever it is. That's how this whole podcast came about. So the idea is that, you know, if you don't have that Jewishness attached to adulting or any form of faith or religion attached to your life, there can be it can be very vacuous. Now, in terms, the other thing that I thought about when you were talking was that, you know, when I say, you know, it's difficult to do self-improvement, I think maybe I might have a misunderstanding of what falls under the issues of Mussar, because, you know,
Right. Okay. I'm gonna stop you there for just a moment if I can. If you think of Mussar as I'm worthless, I'm nobody, I'm nothing, I'm afraid that's not quite accurate at all. Now there is humility, there is a part of humility, and that's definitely a piece of it. But Mussar is about one thing: understanding why I'm here, developing a relationship with Hashem. You know, the Chovos HaLevavos spends parak after parak about Avas Hashem, loving Hashem, but in a real sense. We have a commandment twice a day. We say Kriya Shema. I have to love Hashem with all my heart, I'm ready to give my life, all my money, all my resources, whatever I have. I love Hashem more than anything in existence. But that's a mitzvah upon all of us. Now that requires an awful lot of work. You don't just wake up in the morning and say, Hashem, I love you. Now, when you work on it and think about it and dwell on it, and the Chovos HaLevavos spends a tremendous amount of time emphasizing how much appreciation we have to have. The fact that I have hands, the fact that I have eyesight, the fact that I have taste. Look at all the delicious flavors Hashem put into food. And you're supposed to bite into an orange and say, this is magnificent. You're supposed to bite into an apple and say, wow, Hashem made the walls of the cells brittle and hard, so I should get that crunch. Different than a banana, different than a tangerine, meaning all of the facets that Hashem put into the world strictly for our enjoyment. You're supposed to stop and enjoy it and say, wow, why did Hashem do this? For one reason, because Hashem's the meitiv, Hashem's the giver. Hashem wants us to benefit, and Hashem wants us to enjoy this world. It's not the purpose in creation, but there are so many features that Hashem put in this world strictly for us to enjoy. But you have to focus on that, and you have to really stop it. By the way, and there's a shmooze that I call the orange shmooze. Anyone who listens to the shmooze podcast or shmooze.com knows about it. I say that shmooze as often as I can. I've said it well over 200 times, and I'll tell you why I say it. I focus on the orange and the apple and the different flavors. And for 1 week after I say that shmooze, I eat differently. I actually make a bracha and pay attention. I actually pay attention to the food I eat. I actually pay attention to the flavors, the aromas, the texture. And what happens is I have a different experience during the next week. And if I try to say that shmooze as often as I can. But that's the point. If you're not focused on these things, if you don't realize what growth is about, so I'm worthless, I'm nobody, I'm nothing, that's Mussar. That's not Mussar. And Mussar is about growing. Growing often means, now again, there is an element of humility, which sometimes you have to work on, and you have to realize I'm not so great. But that not so great means I'm a human being. You know what I mean? Meaning, and people think of humility as I'm worthless, I'm dirt. No. Humility is recognizing that I am but a mortal flesh and blood. That is the essence of humility, that Hashem is the creator and I am the creation. I am not all powerful. I'm not almighty. I'm not all knowing. That is Hashem. I'm the opposite. I'm the creation. That's the essence of humility. You study the Chovos HaLevavos spends a fortune of time on the Shar in Shar Achniah, the Shar of humility, explaining one thing and one thing only, that I'm a human being, because that is humility. Humility is not taking credit for someone else's work, meaning to say, I have a beautiful voice, so I'm great. I have a lot of money, so I'm great. Recognizing that it's talent alone from God is what brings me to humility. But not that I'm worthless, not that I'm a nobody. If Moshe Rabbeinu would say, I don't know how to learn, that would not be humility, that would be foolish. If Ramosha Feinstein would say, I don't really know much of Shas, again, that would not be humility. Humility is an honest recognition that Hashem gave me talents. Hashem gave me opportunities. Hashem gave me all this, and it's a bracha. Wow, let's go. What could I accomplish with it? But I don't take credit for the attribute. When I take credit for the attribute, ich bin, you know who I am? I'm the brilliant. I'm the smart. What I'm doing is I'm stopping to be a human being. So even that bad rap that Mussar gets sometimes because of learning humility is a false understanding. I'm not supposed to think I'm worthless and dirt. That's not an odom. That's not a mensch. Hashem will create the whole world for one human being. I'm supposed to recognize one thing, that at the end of the day, I'm a human being. But that humility is not depressing. That humility is not down. That humility is very, very, it's humbling, but it's very releasing. It's very empowering, because I don't have to live with false ideologies. I don't have to live in someone else's understanding. I'm not all knowing. I don't know. I'm able to say the words, I don't know. I'm able to say I made a mistake. I'm able to admit my fallacies and my flaws. Why? Because I'm just a human being. But you mean yes, just a human being. Okay, I have certain talents, certain strengths. Good. I recognize that. Talent unknown from God. But you see, that's not depressing. It's not a downer. It's a very empowering, very liberating concept. But again, if you don't understand Mussar, so yeah, it must be, I have to think I'm dirt and worthless. Again, Mussar is the most empowering, most liberating concepts. And again, it's, what can I tell you? Until you're in the world, what can I say? Let me make one suggestion. Go to the shmooze.com, get the Shmooze app, go to the Shmooze podcast. There are hundreds and hundreds of Shmooze in many series. I have all kinds of series dealing with these things. Sometimes I wonder who I'm talking to. I wonder who I'm talking to the air, because, but I listen. That's important. I listen, I work on it, and that's good. No, other people listen also, but I highly recommend it. You got to remember one thing though. It's spelled funny. It's spelled THESHMUZ.com. Kind of like Heinz ketchup, SHMUZ.
Yes, I'll post that in the podcast notes.
Okay, good.
And I won't keep you for much longer, because I really appreciate your time. Another thing that occurred to me was, I don't know what the word Mussar literally means. What does that word mean, or where does it come from?
It really means straightening. Shema b'ni Mussar avicha. In other words, it doesn't mean rebuke. It's not. Rebuke is something different. Rebuke is, I told you so, you are. It's not rebuke. And Mussar is, in fact, the Mussar movement, again, so much of Mussar has nothing to do with rebuke, and even not even self-rebuke. By the way, I cannot tell you how much time a person who's learning Mussar will work on one single concept: the greatness of the human being. Godless Adam. I can't tell you how many Mussar shmuzim I've heard from my Rebbe, the Shivas Zatzal. I learned Chavetz Chaim, Rabbi Leibowitz. How many times I speak about the greatness of a human being, how much Hashem invested in a human being, how much a human being can accomplish, how much you could do. I say the following: if we had Chazal's appreciation of the greatness of a human being, we'd have an oversized sense of ego greater than the biggest Baal Gaiva in the world. Now, it's not Gaiva, it's not arrogance, as long as you recognize it comes from Hashem, but the importance given to a human being, the significance given to a human being, the value that Hashem places on any human being. A drunk in the street has more value, more important than we could ever imagine. And when you study this and learn it and really think about it and dwell on it and recognize, I'm created in the image of Hashem. I'm given great potential. I could change, I could grow my words, my speech, who I do, how I act. Do you know what I could accomplish? That concept is very empowering. It's not a downer. It's like, oh my goodness, my value. You mean I'm arrogant? Not arrogant at all. Hashem gave me this opportunity. Hashem gave me these talents, but let me do something with it. There's an amazing opportunity called life. So what can I tell you? It's an entire limud, it's an entire learning process. But again, it's the focus of life. It's a reason for life. Unfortunately, it's not focused on enough. Unfortunately, it seems to be glossed over, but it's what can I tell you? It's very sad.
Right. I mean, I think that possibly some of that misunderstanding around what Mussar means and how we should incorporate it into our lives is also probably around the idea that the amount of effort it takes to change one midah is so tremendous that that alone can be kind of off-putting. It's like, oh, no, I need to stop biting my nails. It's going to take me forever to get to that point where I actually do it. And I'm going to have to put all this time and all this effort. And so you just assume that that's what it means for Mussar. But I'm hearing something different from you. I'm hearing the acknowledgement of the gifts and the blessings that Hashem gives us, and we tap into our own strengths and our weaknesses and try to move forward by, shining light on those areas that need to be improved, not with judgment or depression or anything like that, but with humility, understanding that Hashem gave us these strengths and He gave us these weaknesses.
Right,
So
right.
there's both. Um, can you tell me of a time that someone or possibly someone you don't know started taking Mussar learning very seriously and the impact it had on their lives? Like, have you ever heard of like a transformation from people who have brought it into their lives?
So maybe I'll disappoint you because I'll go the other way. I could tell you from my own life. Since I'm 19 years old, I'm not going to tell you how old I am now, but it's been many years, over 40 years. I'm not going to go any further than that. How much more than 40? Anyway.
The pickleball keeps you young.
Yes, exactly. That pickleball. Wow.
Yeah.
One day I'm going to even find out what it's about. Okay. Anyway, for the past 40 years, I've been learning Mussar religiously. That means at least a half hour a day religiously. There were certain time periods when either because I was getting very busy with Shir or other things, when I neglected to learn Mussar. I can tell you during those time periods, I made more mistakes than I ever did in my life. Life mistakes, serious mistakes. Why did I become foolish? No, because if you lose your focus and you lose your sense of purpose, you make decisions that are unwise. You see, and one of the things Mr. Hashem says is, and this is really the second parak, that the first thing a person has to ask himself is, are my actions and my ways good for me? Are they bad for me? Am I benefiting from this? Are these kind of things I'm doing going to make me happy in 2 years and 5 years and 10 years? That simple cheshbon of, am I benefiting me? Am I going to be happy with the results? Am I going to be pleased that I made these decisions 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, is the core of every decision that's intelligent. And the opposite, every mistake we make is made because we lose sight. We just get busy, we get distracted, and we stop asking ourselves that key essential question. Why am I here? What's life about? So I can share with you from my own life. And then when I stopped learning Mussar, it may be a few months at a time, whatever it may be. At that time period, I made mistakes that were really the worst kind of mistakes I could make. Because why did I become foolish? No, just you lose sight and you lose focus. And as a result, you make decisions that are very short-sighted. You make decisions. Listen, any mistake we make, ultimately, when a person heads down a bad path, whether it be an addiction or an affair or whatever it may be, at the end of the day, he gets to a certain point where he says, what did I do? What was I thinking? What was my problem? What did I envision? Why was my brain on? Because you see, Hashem created us to grow and accomplish. When a person lives his life properly, he makes right decisions, he grows, not everything is perfect, but life makes things work out. There's a way, there's an approach. The problem is if you stop thinking and stop growing, stop asking those questions, you go with passion, you go with whatever comes easily, and you find yourself down a rabbit hole that you never dreamt you'd be down, but then it's too late because you're so deep in it, you can't extract yourself. And every mistake that we get into is because of this. We're not paying attention. We stop asking ourselves why I'm here, what's life about? We stop asking ourselves that key question, am I going to be happy with the results of these actions 2 years from now, 5 years from now? And that question is probably the single most important question a person can ask. Jewish adulting, great concept. It's a great idea. We live in a generation where, I used to say 20 years ago, I used to say, when you become an adult in America, when you're 40, it's no longer true. You become an adult in America when you're 65, because you say, that's not true. You can see grandparents running around in shorts and t-shirt. I don't think you ever become an adult. But the problem is, Hashem gave us this opportunity called life. And if you don't wake up and realize there's great opportunities there, you live like a child. It's okay for a 6-year-old or 7-year-old to live that way. But as an adult, you're supposed to be doing more. You're supposed to have more that is expected of you. And hopefully one day you wake up, realize you're an adult, live your life properly, and really accomplish what you put on the planet to do.
Yeah, that sounds, see, I told you, you should be my mascot. This would be amazing. So should have.
I'll be the mascot. Yeah, I'll be the little dog on the front of the car. Yeah. Woof, woof.
So I don't want to take any more of your time. Is there anything that you would like that maybe we didn't cover or that you wanted to tell the audience before we let you go?
I want to say this has been a very, very important conversation. I didn't realize it when you asked me to, when you invited me onto the show, but I realized you gave me a tremendous isorus. You gave me a tremendous awakening because I forgot. And it was right now I'm focused on marriage. I'm working on a marriage mentoring program and I'm working on another book, etc. So I'm very holed into my little world over here. And I forgot there's a much bigger world out there. And for a good little while, I've been sort of focused away from it. So thank you.
Oh, no problem. It's my pleasure. Maybe we could have you on another time. I won't push my luck just yet, but you might
When
hear
I
from
become
me.
an adult, when I'm 65.
Okay.
Uh,
In however many years that will be. Okay.
Many, many years, many years. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was a huge
My
honor.
pleasure.
Thank you so much. Have a good
Okay,
night.
thank you. Good night. Bye.
Bye.